I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to say tonight, after 4 different sessions, that I am very happy to have participated with the brothers and sisters that I have participated with. We're moving on. And because of me being a little delayed in getting in this evening, I'm not going to belabor this much at all. But I will say, I want to thank all of you, all of the participants, no matter what way you put your hands to the 10,000 Fearless. I want to thank you for participating with the 10,000 Fearless. I want to ask you to continue to support the efforts of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, and the 10,000 Fearless. Special thoughts and special thanks to our brother Abdul Sharif Muhammad, who came up with the idea and presented it to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for us to go forward. So without much delay at all, I want to get right to our brother, the one I call the Jabrilliant one, our brother Jabril Muhammad. Let's get this thing on. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. Thank you so much, Brother Leroy, for that wonderful introduction. Glad and happy you were able to overcome technological difficulties and be here with us. Assalamu alaikum, family. For those unfamiliar with those words, they simply mean peace be unto you. And who could say in a time like this, where so much disarray and anger and frustration is going on, that the Black man and woman and really the entire human family is not in need of just that, peace. On behalf of myself and the panelists, I'd like to thank Brother Leroy Muhammad and Brother Anthony Muhammad, the chair and co-chair of the 10,000 Fearless Philadelphia, for organizing this, being at the head of this initiative, and bringing us all together for a wonderful slew of topics. My name is Brother Jabril Muhammad, your beloved brother and servant, also known as Jabrilliant Engineer, proud member of the Nation of Islam, Muhammad Mosque number 12 here in Philadelphia, under the esteemed leadership of Delaware Valley Regional Minister, Brother Rodney Muhammad. Furthermore, I'm also the co-host of the STEM Files podcast, the voice of STEM talent in Black culture, director of engineering for Original Man Scientific, a research and development company geared towards delivering the advantages of R&D to your community. And last but certainly not least, your humble host for tonight's sessions, which is the 5th in a slew of great topics. First, we had violence averted, accepting a new paradigm. Where do we go from here? Second, we had trauma, the walking time bomb. Third, we had self-governance, self-policing, a community rebuilt. Fourth was the valence of violence, a false veil, creating a destructive reality. And now, last but not least, we have a house divided, toxic love, domestic violence, healing the Black heart. Family, what do those terms mean to you? Tonight, I want you to think about those terms, think about that title as we move to unpack it. Not myself, but our illustrious panelists that we have on tonight's session. So without further ado, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna have our panelists unmute themselves and come on so we can see their beautiful faces and we can continue on with tonight's program. All praise is due to Allah. All praise is due to Allah. So without further ado, just going straight down the line, I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, what they do, and we will get it on and popping as we always do as a 10,000 Fearless. So we want to start with our sister Zuna Queen, aka Camille Bell. What's going on, Queen?
Peace and love, family. I'm grateful to be here tonight on this Friday with you all. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Camille Bell. I also go by Zuna. I am a mother of 2 beautiful sons who are worthy of a better world. I am the owner and lead accountability partner at Answer the Bell. It's a peer counseling company. I am also a Navy vet. I am a community activist, freedom fighter, rebel. And I usually participate heavily at the North Philadelphia Peace Park, so you can definitely catch me out over there.
Thank you so much, Queen. Big brother Gabe, what's going on, beloved?
Peace, Brother Jabril. It's always good seeing you, family. and good seeing our colleagues here on this panel, Brother Gabe Bryant. I'm a Pan-Africanist, a revolutionary. I work with several organizations, primarily right now, the Black Philly Radical Collective, but really my goals and my work are around mass incarceration, youth, Black men and boys, and figuring out a way out of the condition that we find ourselves in. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. Moving up to my fellow member of the Fruit of Islam and engineer, mechanical engineer to be exact, Brother Dante. What's going on, beloved? Peace.
Good evening, family. Peace. How you doing? My name is Brother Dante. Like Brother Jabril just mentioned, Fruit of Islam, part of the Nation of Islam. I'm a graduate of North Carolina University, the best HBCU in the nation, where I majored in mechanical engineering. Been a part of numerous organizations, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers, currently 10,000 Fearless, and a lot of my work really centers around really helping, as they call us, underrepresented minorities in STEM really matriculate through their education and really, really get a handle on technology and engineering. So.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Moving over to another member of the Fruit of Islam, big brother, mentor, and fellow member of the ministry class, the mighty ministry class, and Muhammad Muslim 12, Brother Laman Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. How are you, beloved brother?
All well, all praises due to Allah.
Yes, Brother Laman Muhammad, lifelong educator in this Delaware Valley region, community activist, student in the ministry, mentor. Love to see myself as that guy that's always in the trenches, willing to go any and everywhere to deliver our people with the word of God, and just being there as a solid object for our people. And I'm elated to have all these, be back on here with all of these beautiful people. Me and Brother Gabe go back to Sankofa. He had a little circle over at Temple University, and we'll proudly participate in that with him. So just lifelong educated community activist. Wherever I'm needed, in the trenches, I fill in.
Thank you, sir. Praise to Allah. So, and as we started with the Queen, we're going to end with the Queen for introductions. Sister, member of the Muslim Girls Training and General Civilization class of Muhammad Muslim number 12, Sister Jasmine X. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Queen?
Wa alaikum assalam. Fine, sir. Praise be to Allah. I'm just happy to be here. Like you said, Sister Jasmine X, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Temple University alumni, where I studied economics and religious studies. I'm an artist of both music and spoken word, community activist, and of course, proud member of the Nation of Islam, Muslim Girls in Training class, as well as a vanguard, a woman in the forefront, yes, sir, of the fight for our people, especially our young women. So happy to be here.
Yes, ma'am. And always, as my wife does, they put the V's up for the vanguard.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. So, family, do y'all have it? Illustrious and humble panelists. Stay tuned as we go into today's topic with these dynamic people, unpacking it one question at a time. So, without further ado, we started with her first in introductions. We're going to go straight to her for our first question, Sister Camille. And before I go any further, I don't know if y'all can see, but I have a shirt on, Sister's new apparel line. It says energy plus intention equals effort. And if y'all have seen any of our sessions, we're going to do just that. We're going to have a lot of energy. Our intention is to unpack today's topic and be able to build, and then we're going to give y'all a hella effort. So we expect that in return. So without further ado, for Sister Camille, for our first question, we have, what are the root causes of relationship issues within the Black community? How have these issues led to domestic violence in the Black community?
So I really want to just, I like to give my answers and make them short and sweet. I'm a very direct and straightforward person, right? So I got to give the heavy right off the top. For me, as I was thinking about what the root, when we're talking about really getting to the root of an issue and things that need to be addressed, I would have to say that I believe the root causes of our relationship issues are one, systematic, right? But they're systematic in the way of oppression, right? We are an oppressed people, okay? So we're experiencing systematic poverty, subpar education at the root, right? At the root, when we talk about the root, subpar education, which gives us not accurate history of ourselves as a people on this planet, right? So that leads us to lacking knowledge of self, right? When we talk about, I want to sum that all up with giving a quote, right, from the brother. His name is Neely Fuller. He is a sociologist and author, a great man. Please look him up if you're not familiar. Neely Fuller Jr. His quote says, "If you don't understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you." So with that being said, if we're talking about being an oppressed people, because we're oppressed by a system of racism, oppression actually means to cause someone distress, to cause anxiety, to bring about discomfort. That is oppression. That is the actual definition of being oppressed. So if we talk about stress, right, just having chronic levels, compounded levels of stress in our lives as the people that we are on this planet, in our community, as Black African people in this world, right? Having compounded stress and living with that stress every day, then that's going to lead, one, a very common symptom of stress is irritability, right? So when we think about being irritable and we have these levels of compounded stress, that will lead to other health issues, right? So that's what's really at the root of things for the issues in our relationship, right? And in the way of leading to domestic violence that we see in our community, in our family sometimes, that's coming from a place of that oppression, right? That compounded stress. If you within yourself don't know really who you are, where you're from, you know, you have a broken family possibly, you feel alone, right? You might get into a situation where you just feel like you want to lash out at people because you're angry and maybe you don't even know why. You don't understand the root for why you're upset, right? So those are the things that compound and create these situations where we have domestic violence in our homes. That creates the situations, those levels of stress create the mental health issues that we deal with on a regular basis. That for a long time went along as a stigma, you know, and nobody's wanting to talk about being depressed because we're constantly in poverty or having some type of financial issue, right? Or constantly being stressed because you're trying to figure out how you're going to get food in the house. You know what I mean? How you're going to make sure that you have hot water in your house. Very basic things, right? If you have to deal with that on a regular basis, your basic needs, the necessities to life, then I think that you can see how things can progress. You know what I mean? So I think that we really have to get in a way of thinking about our mental health overall as a community.
There's so much. I'm going to a few topics or key themes you spoke about. Talked about knowledge of self. You talked about stress. You talked about mental health. When we think about those things as it pertains to our community, we have suffered and continue to suffer what's known as identity theft. When you, or let me say it like this. If we were to encounter a poisonous snake in nature, right? Most of us, unless we suffer some chemical imbalance, would do our best to stay a certain distance. Why? Because we are very aware of the identity of that creature and what it can do in terms of harm to us. Thereby, we know that we are greater than that, but we're not stupid, right? We know how to properly relate to what is present in that particular situation and use our environment to be able to be successful and continue to be safe and secure. I want to segue to Brother Lamond, and I want to do so after saying this. In the Nation of Islam, we're taught that we have been given root knowledge. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad also gave us a prayer that we're to say 7 times a day. It's our refuge prayer, and it goes like this. Oh Allah, seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. I seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness. I seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice thou me with what is lawful and keep me away from what is prohibited. And with thy grace, make me free of want of what is beside thee. On that point, I want to segue to Brother Lamond, and you can add further value based on what I just said or just what Sister Zuna said on that point, beloved.
Well, beloved brother, as I was listening to the Queen talk and elaborate very beautifully on the root causes, it made me reflect on a lot of our root causes in life are based on the decisions that we make. And the root cause of a lot of our bad relationships is based on bad decisions that we've made based on fearful of being lonely. And a lot of times when you and I are lonely and we feel abandoned, we begin to settle for things in our life. And I would say this, that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach us that we must know the nature of the man and the woman. See, if the sisters who was a serious creation of God, and that's why it's so important to understand the value of a woman. You're not looking at a bitch, you're looking at the second self of God. And when you understand that she is a queen, then you have a duty and an obligation to maintain that queen. The Holy Quran says men are maintainers of women. That's big, man. For God to give us the duty and the responsibility to maintain a serious creation of God. So you and I can't maintain a woman that we don't have knowledge. Come on. We can't maintain a woman we don't have wisdom. You and I can't maintain a woman that we're not connected to God. And because she's the second self of God, she's always looking for God in you and I. Come on. So the thing is that our relationships fail, one, because they're not rooted in God. Most of our relationships, and we be quite honest, are rooted in lust. I'm going to say it again. A lot of our relationships are not rooted in God, and they're not rooted in love. They're rooted in lust, and they're rooted in what you can do to satisfy me temporarily. Come on. And we as men don't understand, and a lot of us don't understand, that there's a difference between sex and intimacy. Come on. And so what has happened with us is that we want to go to the bedroom, but the bedroom is not the only room in the house. You got a living room, you got a prayer room. There's other rooms in the house that you should want to get to besides the bedroom. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says this to us, that there's nothing wrong with sex. Sex was given by God for us to receive pleasure in the act of reproducing. But what Satan has done is he has made sex and promiscuity, and he has taken a natural thing and made it unnatural. So the minister said it's not nothing wrong with sex, it's the improper use of sex. So now, because we have been under freaks for the last 6,000 years, the enemy have made us into freaks. Come on. So now the ones that sleep with animals, the ones that sleep with little boys, the ones that sleeping with a 10-month-old. Here's a man, in closing, a football coach slept with a 10-month-old child. So we have become, as the minister teaches us, human swine, female swine and male swine. So because we've been up under a freak, we have become what the freak has taught us in the last 400 plus years. If the freak is a transgender, we become transgender. If the freak is a homosexual, we are homosexual. And that doesn't mean that if you're involved in that behavior, that you should be mistreated But how is that kind of behavior productive when you and I are trying to build a nation? So the root cause of it is us not understanding each other's role and not having God in the relationship. It don't matter if you're in Islam, if you're in Christianity, if you're a Pan-Africanist, if you're a revolutionary, you should have some connection to the Creator, and you should want to mate that's connected to the Creator in some way. I don't want to be with no godless woman. You can have that. If you don't got no connection to God, you can go ahead with your fine self.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Can the church say amen, family? Can the church
Yes, Brother
say
Lamont.
amen? Sister Zuna, I'm starting it off, but Lamont hit it hard. You know, I love what he said. And as we talked about this male-female dichotomy, what he really said, family, can be extended to our relationships in general. The stress imposed of us, if you talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome, if you talk about the studies, some of the studies done where they equated the mind of a Black man or woman in America almost like they're in a war zone, it's hard for you to see yourself properly or your mirror image in your son, daughter, aunt, uncle, friend, colleague, or whatever in the proper focus if you're constantly under stress. So your disconnection from your source of strength, whatever you call He, Yahweh, Allah, Most High, Supreme Intelligence, whatever you call it, your disconnection from that which gave you life, this allows you to see yourself properly, and then you're doomed in your relationships from then on. Right? So as we segue and we continue in this dynamic discussion, we want to come to our sister Jasmine. And I want to ask, is the need for acceptance that great that it allows for toxic relationships? And what then is that?
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I just want to say the mere need or act of wanting to be accepted by others usually comes at the expense of yourself, and usually comes at the compromise of who you really are. And so when you think about just that, it kind of gets to really going into the second part of the question of what is the root cause of that problem. And I feel as if it really comes down to a self-identity issue, right? And so for women in particular, and when I say women, really, I mean all women, not even just Black women, women of all different races and different backgrounds. A lot of the time, our identity as women is tied to our relationships with men, right? And it's tied to being able to get a man and being able to keep a man. A lot of the time, whether that man is good to you, whether he's faithful to you, and whether or not he's abusing you. And so for Black women in particular, there's even more reinforcement to have this ideal of your identity being tied to a man that's not good for you. Not even just in your own mind because of things that you may have been taught through an upbringing, but also it could be from friends or your sisters or your mother telling you that, you know, seeing you're in a toxic relationship and telling you, well, you know what, maybe you should, you know, just try to work it out with him because at least you have a man, you know what I mean? Rather than worrying about, is he the right man for you?
Come on.
And what does that come from? A lot of it, as we know, is a domino effect of a lot of what we see in our community, because a lot of Black women that are motivated to say this to us feel as if that there might not be a lot of good Black men available. So try to keep the one that you have, regardless of if he's treating you right or not. Because of things such as maybe mass incarceration, a lot of our men are in prison, and maybe just in general, the demasculinization of the Black man in society, as there's a lot of Black men that just aren't fit or in a condition to even be with a Black woman. And it's very dangerous. You know, it's very dangerous to think that, you know, just because I have a man, you know what I mean, period, that I should just try to keep him regardless of what is going on and how he's treating me. And even to also think about it on a larger aspect, and not just talking about Black women, but Black women and Black men. When you talk about self-identity, period, when you don't know who you are, you can't really see yourself, right? And so when you can't really see yourself, there's a dependency that's built on the next person to see you for you, in a sense that you can't really just look in the mirror and see who you truly are. You're relying on someone else's lenses to look at yourself. And a lot of the time those lenses are foggy, right? And so, for instance, if you're in a relationship and someone is abusing you or taking advantage of you, and they're constantly telling you you're nothing, you're not worthy, you don't deserve to be with someone better. You know what I mean? This is something that, because you don't know yourself, you're now taking in that information and learning it for yourself. And it goes into this cycle of you staying in a toxic relationship. And it's not just women, it could be Black men as well. There's a lot of Black women that could talk to their Black men as if they're dogs, you know, and call them out their name as well, and try to break their spirit down. And, you know, they internalize that as well. And so I feel as if a real solution to that is having, you know, more self-knowledge and really knowing yourself and being strong in your identity, and being strong in the relationship that you have to yourself. Because at the end of the day, you came into the world by yourself, you leave it by yourself. So in addition to the relationship that you have with God, the relationship that you had with yourself is the one that's not going anywhere, whether there's someone in your life or not. So, yes, sir.
Thank you so much for that, Queen. You talked about a number of key things. I want to go back to you talking about having a man and struggling with that man, even though you know he may not be good for you. I want to talk about something I had raised in a previous session. We talked about the man versus the male. If we understand the example put before us through scripture, through our history of God, is really what a true alpha male is. The true man is. The true man and woman, if we understand, should the criterion, if you will, that or standard that you should hold yourself to. So if you're not at least striving in some way, shape, or form, what you have is a male. You have an underdeveloped human being or underdeveloped man. That doesn't necessarily mean he's not good. It means he's not yet what he needs to be in any of his relationships. So going back to acceptance, you know, the Holy Quran talks about, you know, and vision comprehended him not. And that is more to that, but a lot of Muslims in the community they use that to assert that, you know, we can't see God. And we know we in the Nation of Islam talk about God as a man. And I bring that up because when you look at any one of us, you look at it in any relationship, any human being, can you honestly say you comprehend that person fully? Absolutely not. When you see me, all you see is a tall, dark, handsome man. You don't know if I'm a good human being. You don't know if I'm a bad human being. You don't know if I put my hands on my wife or not. So when we talk about acceptance, it's not so bad to be accepted, but are we trying to be accepted for something that is not in accord with who we really are? We're not the bad boy. We're the one who likes to open the door for the sister and likes to be the quote unquote corny male, right? But that's the real us. So in that acceptance, we want to. What are we being accepted for, and is that in accord with who we truly are, who we're truly striving to be? But I want to open that up. Anybody have anything to go after sis on that point? Anyone?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tay.
I wanted to briefly, yeah, and you know, being in college, you really experience a lot of different things, because when you're in an environment like that, or I guess just in school in general, you know, there's constantly a push to kind of want to be like everyone else. And the reason why I say that is because usually when you're in a peer group, or when you're in a lot of people that's around your age, you know, it's human nature to want to be accepted. Like I think we should mention that's a natural thing for humans to feel. It's very natural for humans to find a sense of community. It's very natural for humans to seek people who are like themselves. It's very natural for human beings to want to be around people. You know, if we talk about, you know, God and, you know, in the Nation of Islam, in our theology, we talk about the creation of the first. And one of the things that he felt was he was lonely, you know. And if you really stop for a moment and really think about that concept of, you know, someone, you know, creating themselves, and they being the only one, being the only one in this vast big space of just nothingness. There is just them there. You know, so he was so lonely that, you know, we're taught that he looked within himself and he's seen a second self, and this is where the woman comes from. So, you know, so that's a very natural thing for human beings to want to have a companion, for human beings to want to be in an area. Now, the problem comes in that is when said community or said group of people are not living up to their natural role. I think we mentioned a little bit earlier, Brother Lamont mentioned the nature of the man and a woman. The problem comes in as where these group of people or this community of people aren't living up to their natural role. I was listening to Minister Farrakhan yesterday, and I was listening to, it was a lecture, he was talking about what is a father. And in that lecture, he mentioned that, you know, really the entire Bible is really all inside of Genesis, but the word Genesis, you have the word gene. And when you decode gene, you really see the potential of that particular human being. So it's the same thing with that book. Genesis being the first chapter of the book, he said the entire Bible is really wrapped up in the Genesis. All you really have to do is learn how to decode it. So, you know, kind of, you know, going off of that, if we don't understand how to bring out our natural self, or if we don't have the knowledge to bring out our natural self, then we're going to act other than self. And then when you have a whole lot of people acting other than self, getting together and forming different communities, then you have a community that is acting other than self. And then when someone is born into that community and they're raised in that community, then they're looking at people who are doing other than self. So, you know, it's really that question of nature versus nurture. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that, you know, no matter how much of good is in you that is of nature, if you are put in the wrong environment, then you are going to take on the color of your environment. And this is true. This is true in any situation. If you look at a lion who was raised inside of a zoo, he's not going to take on his natural state, which is to, you know, out in the wild hunting. He's going to take on the characteristics of the lion who has been in the zoo, who waits to be fed, and, you know, who eats 3 times a day, or who does tricks, or who sleeps and do all these different things. It's not that, you know, he doesn't have the nature of a lion. He still does, but he's just been raised in this particular environment. And that has colored him in a particular way. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, that, you know, our environments are very key, and environments are made up of a collection of people. And if, going back to self-development, if those collection of people don't develop themselves individually, then we cannot have a successful community. And those that are born in the community and raised in the community are going to want to take on the qualities of said community. So at the end of the day, it still goes back with self and developing self so that we can have better communities.
Broken down like a true engineer. Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much, Dante, for bringing that to us. I saw you before you unmuted yourself, Brother Gabe. I was already coming to you, whether you wanted me to or not. Go ahead.
And I really want to thank the family. You know, it's been a rough week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I want to open with that because, you know, as I think about our dear beloved brother in West Philadelphia who was killed.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Walter Wallace Jr., 61st and Locust. He is a man who just got married 3 weeks ago. He is a man whose wife induced pregnancy yesterday due to the pain and grief, wanted to assure that she could bring forth this child healthily. And when I saw his sons on television talking about their daddy and what he meant to them, it made me think about tonight's conversation, man. And that's why I'm so full already with the commentary from my peers, because when we make it right, the enemy still finds its way to cause chaos. You know, you talked a lot earlier, I think it was Sister Zuna, about the challenges and the root causes. I want to bring up a number that's really at the root of why we need to look at this thing. 76 trillion. 76 trillion. Now, my elders taught me that that's the date, or how old is the original man and woman. A number that was given to me by the elders told me 76 trillion. A small man, 1930, I believe told that information. If that's the case, we have to think about what type of devilishment and evil happens in the last 400 to 6,000 years that can actually disrupt 76 trillion years of existence.
Come on.
I mean, swallow that for a little bit, because I've been thinking about that for a long time. Like, we really got to process what type of mental and spiritual interruption is potent enough to impact that period of time. And when you realize and come to the conclusion that we're not dealing with any ordinary enemy, then we realize that we have to come with not any ordinary army to combat it. And I'll close with this by saying, I remember hearing Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talk about the fact that we are out of our minds living right now. In today's conversation, hearing the brilliance of what Sister Jasmine just broke down, I have no other cause but to think, what happens to a people who are not only out of their minds, but out of their hearts?
Come on.
What does that mean for a people? To be out of your heart, man. I'm hurting today, man. I'm gonna just be all the way transparent. What happens to a people that is out of their heart? We talk about the mind often. And so we're talking about domestic violence. This is so much deeper than domestic violence.
Right.
We're talking about spiritual violence. We're talking about human violence. We're talking about the Black man's violence. We're talking about the Black woman's violence. We're talking about the original people of the planet Earth having their total very existence disrupted, broken down from the paradise that they had. And so for me, dear family, I must only arrive at it with that regard if I can only go anywhere else in this conversation. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm kind of sitting with as I think about our calls for the next steps. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Again, can the church say amen? Listen, thank you so much for being candid, beloved. I promised y'all on my several posts earlier today that this is going to be candid, we're going to be open, it's going to be dynamic, and it's going to be real. You know, we're not on here to just pontificate and talk for the sake of talking. You know, these are real topics, real conversations that need to be had, then met with action, right? To be able to do what it is that we need to do. Going back to the shirt, right? What does it say? Energy plus intention equals effort, right? We told you we're going to be right in line with that equation as master scientists should. So I do want to go on the point that Brother Gabe made on the 76 trillion years. Before I make some shout outs, we have some dedicated listeners or watchers, excuse me, and we have a question. But Lamont, was there something that you wanted to say to Brother Gabe's point?
I will elaborate on it and thank Brother Gabe, man, and all the great work, you know, that he does, man. It's you know, seeing our brother get gunned down like that, you know, it always poses the question to you, who's next? You know, is it your uncle? Is it your nephew? Is it your niece? You know, who's next? And the thing is that this thing about mental health is so deep that we tend to brush it up under the rug like we do all other things in our family infrastructure. The rape, the incest, you know. So a lot of this stuff that we're participating in is learned behavior. Because if I grow up in a home and I seen, which I never saw, see my father abuse my mother, then deep down on a cellular level, once I get into a relationship, I believe that that's the normal behavior to participate in. If a woman has been raped by her father or her brother sneaking in her room or her uncle, then she feels as though that the only way that she can get compatibility or acceptance by a man is to give herself over to that man. And the biggest mistake that a woman could make is to think that she's going to keep a man based on sex. And because we have been reduced and our manhood has been neutralized, then we become beast in human form. And the only way we can get back to that original state is that we have a class, a manhood training class, a womanhood training class. And some of our ego is so big that we don't think we need a class. Just think about what Brother Gabe said. The original man has been here for 76 trillion years. And within a 6,000 year period, this man has turned us upside down and inside out, man, and turned us to complete savages, where you're asleep with your daughter. Just think of that. You're asleep with a 10-month-old child. So the thing is that we need to be reorientated into our original state. And that's why separation, and I read something that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, hell, if you don't want to separate from the enemy with this 8 to 10 states that are fertily and mentally rich with an outlet to the sea, then you can stay here with the enemy. But at some point, we're going to need our own separate territory so we can get the hell away from these savage, freakish people. Because this thing is being passed down to our children now. And these people are so wicked that they're trying to say that it's okay and legal to sleep with 3-year-old children. This is the type of wickedness that's going on in our society. So I would say that this mental health issue, the trauma of seeing another Black man gunned down, the irresponsibility of the Philadelphia Police Department. I love our sister Danielle Outlaw, but I'm not letting her off the hook, because when she was being questioned, some of them questions she gave was poor answers. How do you have millions of dollars in a city and only have one behavior specialist person in the room to accept calls when somebody is mentally challenged? What the hell is wrong with us, man? You got all of this money in the city of Philadelphia, and you got one behavior specialist person assigned to the police department. And that particular person was not working. So it's unexcusable. It's sad, but it's the reality of what we're dealing with. And that's why people need to listen when we say defund the police. We're not saying get rid of the police, but hell, why should we keep on funding the police 20, 30, $40 million and they gunning us down and killing us in all the major cities in the country? Hell, give us 5 to 10% of that budget and invest that budget in suicide awareness and mental health and conflict resolution. Give us some of that money, because if you're not going to train your officers and they don't know how to work in the hood, it's obvious when you look at the video. We don't need them to release the body camera. We already saw what happened. It wasn't protect and serve. It was kill and destroy. So what we need to look at the body camera for, and those 2 white cowards that was called to the scene was scared to death. And if you scared, you shouldn't even want to work in no police department, because part of our training, see, that's why our training is FOI is so important, because we know when we go into a trained. We know when Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is around that we putting our life on the line.
Every
and
time.
if you ain't willing to police our community in the right kind of way, then don't even sign up for the police department. Those two jokers were scared to death. So, brother, I feel Brother Gabe's pain, but I'm thankful to Allah for the training I have received and we have received. And a lot more men need to come get this training, regardless of what your religious denomination is. You need to be made in a class, a manhood class that can make you into a God. Point blank, period. Because a man that's a God will not tolerate nobody infringing in his territory without giving the proper response.
Praises due to Allah, family. Thank you so much, Brother Lamont. I'm proud and thankful for this training as well. I know Brother Dante is. All praise due to Allah. Family, just clearing words, right? Why y'all throwing around the word God? How is man God? We know God is just one possessing power and force. We are not the supreme being. We are his children. So what happens when we grow up as those who are the original people? That's what we're talking about today. Thank y'all so much. I want to give a few shout outs for our audience members. Thank y'all for rocking with us and giving us your questions. Big shout out to Christine Jackson, Brother Enrico X, Ikemba, Bumani Ojore, Brother David Hassan, the over our orientation class, and Muhammad Mas number 12 for the brother side. I want to give a special shout out to also to Ricky Lloyd O'Connor and my former African-American history teacher at George Washington Carver High School of Engineering and Science, still going strong, Brother Ernest Milton. We have a question from Brother David Hassan. He says, and this is open for the panelists, on the topic of sexism and gender wars, should the bond within gender be stronger than the bond of family unit? Is it better to be independent or interdependent? I'm gonna say that one more time. On the topic of sexism and gender wars, should the bond within gender be stronger than the bond of family unit? Is it better to be independent or interdependent? And this is open for the floor.
All right, I definitely have something to say to that. I feel like, for one, we need to stop feeding into gender wars or however that looks, right?
Right.
There is no war between us. There is no war. I think that we could absolutely do things to strengthen our relationship and our bonds at this point. But family is number one overall. It's no reason to separate in that way, because that's how we actually relate to one another. Me as a woman, as a mother in my household, as a wife, that's how I relate to the men around me, right? So that I don't think that we can separate that and be leading with me being a woman. You know what I mean? That's not, I relate to my family as a woman. So I think that we need to definitely do better in that area of whatever is supposed to be going on, and breaking the bonds in our family.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for bringing that up. It's all over social media, and I feel like, and correct anybody else if you want to elaborate on this, like, let me know if you feel this way. Whenever there's a topic in our community and we seem to be kind of mostly aligned, you know what I'm saying, in something that affects us as a people, here comes some little sly comment about black men versus black women. Black men are the white men of the black community, or like just these things. And we know, we go back to the Million Man March, right? We knew why the Honorable Minister Farrakhan called us as men, and we had failed our communities, our women, our children, our communities, right? But I think a lot of times these little like pseudo woke arguments creep into our major movements and corrupt them from the inside out. And I think we should really stop doing that, because we have to operate more as a military. We have to understand that we can do things behind closed doors and align and get something for self, the same way with these religious differences. We don't have to keep debating and doing all that stuff, because honestly, when we become free, it still want to exist, whether you call yourself this or that, but we all gonna be eating. So my thing is, let's tackle what's most important and then do all the other things on the back end. Or as we also know, how about we fix our brother or sister's collar or coattail behind closed doors and stop airing each other out on social media. That's all I had to say on that. But thank you, Sister Zuna, so much. And I'm seeing Sister Jasmine, you have a point on that you want to share?
No, I mean, it was just a really quick thought to kind of go with that because, you know, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, even just the term of saying gender wars is toxic. There are no gender wars, right? There is no, you know what it really makes me think of? It just made me think of feminism and the beginnings of feminism and truly non-intersectional feminism, of where a movement that started because white women felt oppressed by their white men. And so in turn, feminism kind of being forced onto us in a sense of, okay, well, because we're at war, you must be at war with your man.
Go ahead.
And that wasn't the case. And you have modern day feminists that look back on history and paint certain Black women in history as feminists when they weren't with the movement. You know what I mean? And so I just think it's just an important point to like really think about the fact, in a sense, that we have always been on the same team, even sometimes when we don't realize it. To paint this picture of the fact that we're at war with each other is just toxic. And that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you so much, Jazz. Jazz, like you said, and going right to Brother Gabe and then Brother Dante, you mentioned how we weren't even as Black men in a position to do to our women what white men was doing to their women. So how do we get looped into this? And that's the trick, because as you're coming up and coming together, here goes another rock to go into the situation to keep us at odds, or another way to agitate, the washing machine. So thank you so much, Brother Gabe and Brother Dante.
Yeah, from a political standpoint, I used to always say, that the media operates like the fourth branch of the government.
Go ahead.
In the ways that it employs certain messages, ideas, and thoughts. Now, in this current context, I would go as far as to say social media has become perhaps 4B or 5 branch of the government. And I say that because I feel like there's all this assaults of images, the autoplays of violence, the rampant, bots who will, as you said so eloquently, Jasmine, share these toxic images on our Twitter feeds, on our Facebook timelines, on our IG pages. All of it is done, not to actually not to empower us, right? Not to enrich, not to strengthen, but as you said, to kind of have us scattered and, hamsters in the wheel around the same conversations and not growing in our love. And I really want to say growing in our love, because that's really what we need tonight. We're talking about a house divided. And what does that mean to have a house divided? I mean, for me, a house divided, to the person's question, it speaks to that, right? This gender war question, right? I don't believe that we are in a gender war. Damn it, we being warred on. That's the war. You know what I mean? Like, let's be very clear about the language, and let's be very clear about what's really happening. Because that impacts our ability to love one another, both platonically, both in romantic love, and of course in domestic violence. I'll close with this one. There's a brother, right, who I've known for some years. Again, I work in mental health. Just as we think about solutions, he was a friend of a friend, and he actually was caught up in some domestic violence situations as far as him being the abuser. He's gone through the appropriate, therapy and counseling to have him work through that question, a lot of anger management issues. And to this day, on his cell phone, I've told him, I said, look, man, if you're ever in a moment of crisis, and he knows what crisis is, you know, his partner is saying something and he finds himself getting riled up, I say, call me immediately.
Right, right.
Call me immediately. I don't care where you are. If you're in the car, pull over. If you're on a job, if you're on a regional rail, if you're on a sub, if you're on the L, if you're walking down the street, if you're just in the house, I don't care. I've gotten calls at 3:45 a.m. Yo, Brother Gabe, can you talk real quick? Yeah, I can talk. Go ahead. I already know what it's about. He's walking around probably in a circle, probably in this basement, because he don't went from the upstairs to downstairs. But the point that I'm raising this with, right? And I'll stay on the phone for as long as he needs to calm him down. And he's good. And he's working through it. And the good thing is he hasn't had to call me in over a year.
Come on.
Which is a good sign of growth. It's a great sign of growth. Thank you for the applause, because it's not applause for me, it's applause for him. Right? That's his journey of growing into his where he needs to be up here, his mental health. I raised that because here's a man willing to do whatever he had to do to keep his unit together.
Right.
See, she didn't know necessarily about all the old situations. I mean, he told her a little bit, but see, she wasn't around initially. This is a new woman. You follow me?
Right.
But he understood the pain and the anger and the anxiety and the emotional, just his lack of well-being that he was still stepping into that relationship with. And so he had to understand for himself, how do I do everything in my will to make sure that I don't mess this up?
Right.
I can't harm this woman. I can't harm myself. I can't do it. So please, Gabe, please pick up the phone when I call you, because it's going to help me. It's going to keep my house together. Right. It's going to keep my house unified and united.
Yes, sir.
And so the fact that he hasn't called me in over a year, I'm reminded of the success and the victories in our community if we just commit to having a united house and a strong and empowered heart.
Mm. Again, can the church say amen? Thank you so much, Brother Gabe. You know, I'm coming straight to Dante, but I must admit, family, I'm a very sensitive brother. You know, I tend to, when I meet passion with passion, a lot of times I can hear in your voice, Brother Gabe, the trial that brother went through and how much it meant to you. Not only that he came through it, but you were able to assist him in that regard. See, we don't talk about the importance of our love for one another as men. You know, this is not nothing funny, you know what I'm saying, per se, or, you know, we're not talking about a homosexual relationship per se. We're talking about just as men being there for one another, like our spouses or like, you know, our women cannot. They have a certain presence that we need, but we as men have another one that's important for us to get through. So thank you so much, Brother Gabe, Brother Dante, and then we're going to go to another question from our audience.
Yes, sir. You know, Brother Gabe mentioned something very interesting when he said, you know, we're being warred on. And I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I think going back to Brother David's question about, you know, this war that we're having within our community, more specifically men versus women. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he's, you know, he usually he describes an experience where he received pretty much instructions from his father, the Honorable Minister, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And, you know, a part of that was a warning that America was going to go to war. And he didn't really know who the war was with, but over time he realized that it was a war against certain countries in the Middle East. But as he developed in his knowledge, he also realized that the war was against Black youth in America. And you know, when we're talking about a war, it's so funny. I was talking to a friend of mine probably about a week and some change ago, and I refer to, like, you know, the government or you know Caucasians in high places as like the enemy. And he was like, well, why do you think that, white people are the enemy? And when he said that to me, like, it really kind of like caused me to think. And I was just like, wow, like our people really don't understand that we are technically at war. And, that's on all different kinds of levels. When you talk about a people who have been treated and oppressed the way that we have for the past 460 years, that's nothing short of war. War, you don't stop until your enemy is completely destroyed. Even in some cases, when you're at war, you may accept a surrender. But when you think about a people who don't even know that they're at war, that's a whole different sort of concept, because the overarching goal is to make sure that we don't survive. So it goes from war to technically genocide, and that's really what these plans at the highest levels of government is. It's really genocide of the Black seed, of the Black man, of the Black family. So when you look at our 460-year history inside of this country, you see certain genocidal tactics, and a part of that genocidal tactics was attack on the Black family, because you can't have a successful nation if you don't have a successful family. So when you look at the family unit and you understand that there are certain roles that exist inside of that family unit in order for a family to function properly, I like to think about it. My engineering mind, I like to think about it in terms of like, manufacturing. If you've ever been in a manufacturing plant, you have a product that a certain manufacturer produces or that they assemble. And each particular assembly line or each line, they have a particular function. So this line does this explicitly. It may do 2 or 3 different things, but this is its function. This is that function over there. This part of the plant has this particular function. This plant over there does that. That's its particular function. And at the end of the day, if every machine, if every part of the plant does its function, then at the end you will have a successful product that is assembled, and you can then ship it off to your customer. If we think about the family unit as the same thing, if you have each individual inside of a family, a mother, a father, children, a grandmother, grandfather, etc., and each one understands its particular function, then that assembly, that family unit will be successful. That family unit will run efficiently. That family unit will carry on throughout time. So when you have people inside of this unit who don't understand their function and who are constantly trying to take on each other's function, or the functions are reversed, or they're not sure what their function is, then you have, just like the assembly plant, you will have things running into each other. Because if I have 2 machines that are trying to do the other 2 machines' job, is not going to work, because then you have a whole bunch of problems. And then as the engineer or the technician or whatever, you have to go in and figure out, why isn't this machine running properly? Why isn't this machine doing what it's supposed to do? Why isn't it doing its function? So, in war, the idea is, okay, if I can cause the other nation, the other people, or the other person who I am going to war with, if I can cause them to make a mistake, if I can cause them to look left when, I'm right, if I can cause, a part of their machine to malfunction, I can go in and I can divide and conquer, I can take over, and I can win the war. So what we don't understand as a people is that we don't understand that these tactics are being operated on us on a daily basis. Literally 24 hours a day, these tactics are being operated on us. So when we talk about, our internal wars inside of our communities, inside of our culture, these are imposed things. These are things that are occurring because someone else is going to war with us. And, it's constantly referred to as the hidden hand, the hand that we don't see. When we ask, how did all these guns get inside of our community? It didn't pop up there. You see what I'm saying? Our brothers and our sisters didn't go over to Afghanistan or Iraq to get, AK-47s and all this extra stuff.
Right. That's right.
it doesn't haphazardly happen. It's not by magic, right? For every real effect, there's a real cause behind it. So understanding that we're at war and understanding the particular tactics that are being used on us is a really important part of this equation, because if we don't think that we are being warred on, if we don't think that there are certain tactics and certain maneuvers that are being operated on us to make sure that we aren't functioning properly, then we're going to think that there's something inherently wrong with us. We're going to think that there's something that's, naturally wrong with, what we're doing as, just Black people in general in the community. And, it's not necessarily that there's something inherently wrong with you. You are made in the reflection of God. There's nothing inherently wrong with you. You're being warred on, and you don't know that you're being warred on. So because you don't know that, then you're not operating in your natural function. Therefore, your family isn't operating in its function, because everybody is out of sync. Everybody isn't acting in accord to their nature. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So, just kind of, going back to Brother David's question, yeah, we are warring on each other. You see what I'm saying? Only because there's an external force that's acting upon us that we're not necessarily aware of. And the more we become aware of ourselves, and we become aware of, who is doing this warring against us in our community, the better we'll be able to fight back. You see what I'm saying? In war, you have, defensive maneuvers and you have offensive maneuvers. Well, if you don't even know that you're in war, you don't even know how to defend yourself. You see what I'm saying? Because you so busy looking up in the sky, the person is down on earth doing everything that he wants to do to you. But once you become aware of the war that you're operating in, then you're able to start calculating on certain things. Okay, well, I know that this is their intent. I know that this is what they're trying to do. So how do I defend against that? How do I defend my family against that? How do I defend our unit against that? And how do I start operating in the proper function that we're supposed to operate in? So understanding the war is very, very important when we talk about especially male and female relationships in a family unit.
Thanks so much, Dante. That you said a lot, definitely. I love how you broke that down systematically. I love having that engineering voice, being the host, not being necessarily offered that. I love that you're present. To the end of Brother David's question, as we move on to our next question, he talked about that independence and interdependence. And I think what you all have been talking about is really, as the family unit, if you really shore up your independence, your identity as a community, your identity as a family, you allow yourself to truly be interdependent, because you can only be interdependent if you're able to give a certain level of value. If you don't know self, if you have not worked on some internal demons and issues you have as a person, as an individual, as a family unit, then to be interdependent is really impossible for you, truly. You'll definitely, instead of adding value, you'll take away. And now that I want to go into our next question from Brother Ernest Milton, he said, this culture teaches us to value individualism above all else, and that includes relationships. Would it be correct to say that American culture has caused us to go astray? I think we definitely unpack that some. Does anyone want to speak to that really quickly?
I just have a quick comment, and I don't know if this is going to directly answer that question, but I feel as if being an independent woman is something that's put on Black women more than it's put on any other woman. And so even though in America, like Brother said, there is a culture of individualism, there's even more of it enforced onto Black women, in a sense that men are providers, like Brother Lamont was saying earlier. Men are the maintainers of women, but it's gotten to the point where we are, and we have expected of ourselves, and society has expected of us to provide for ourselves, and a lot of the time to provide for the Black man. So the role has reversed. And we know that it's systematic. We know that it's systematic in the oppression that the Black man has received in society. And a lot of the times Black women do turn out to be more educated. A lot of the time Black women do turn out to make more monetarily than the Black man. But at the same time, in addition to the fact that it's not a accident that Black women looking to get certain benefits from the government, a Black man being in the home is a problem. So I just feel as if getting back to, what Brother Dante was just saying about really coming down to nature. It's not in our nature to be independent, period. It's in our nature to be dependent or interdependent on our family unit and dependent on the man. And so the toxic nature of that's been imposed on us has really broken us down as women. It's taxed us and it's caused us to not really hold our men to any standard or to the standard in which we should hold them at. As if we did hold them to that standard, a nation can rise no higher than its woman, but the woman thus has to raise her standard, which then raises the man at the same time.
Go ahead.
So I don't know if I necessarily answered that question in that comment, but it kind of led me to those thoughts.
You definitely did. You brought out a within the conversation. That strong, independent Black woman. See, it's not that you're not strong. It's not that you're not independent, but it's almost like a defense mechanism. Going back to the law of cause and effect that Brother Dante so eloquently talked about. There's a reason why we hear our Black women tell themselves that. It's like an affirmation. Like you wake up, I'm great. You know what I'm saying? I'm a god. I'm gonna kill it today. I'm not this. I am that. See, why? Like I said, why is it that we don't necessarily hear that for other members of the human family, right? It seems to be more okay for women in other communities to not wholeheartedly, but depend on, be at home as a woman. Not to say that it's your place as your base as a woman, as we're taught in the Nation of Islam, right? But see, you get into the money, you doing any and everything as a strong, independent woman. I don't need a man. Yes, you do. And you really want one. But see, you don't want a male. You want a man. And a real man, a real man is going to bring out of you that real woman. And I'm telling you from experience, you know what I'm saying? As a striving man, I bear witness to times where my wife, when I do what I need to do, takes care of me. All praises due to Allah. And when I'm struggling, she lets me know. And that shores me up, and we should help to sharpen each other in this beautiful union known as marriage. So I just wanted to say that very quickly. And I wanted to pose another question before we get to our final scheduled one. We're using this term and this word toxic. Me and Brother Gabe, we talked about in a previous session, the power of imagery, the power of the language, the power of words. Why is it so important that we understand less than ideal or destructive relationships as toxic? What is it about that word and its connotation and even its direct denotation that lets us to know that this is something adverse to our success?
Yeah. Because of the human mind, we make choices. And one of the things that Brother Lamont said, Brother Dante emphasized, is the idea that sometimes we make choices that are harmful to us. What does that mean? You could put something in front of a dog or a cat, and if it makes that dog or cat sick, that dog or cat is never going to touch it again. If it even smells it, it's going to run away the opposite direction. The opposite can happen for us. We will, because our mind is so concentrated, we're able to take in something that's even harmful and even consider the possibility of taking part in that activity again. What's been so toxic about our experience and our relationships is that we haven't found a way in which to be spiritually mature enough to accept the healing that is a duly requirement of ongoing growth, ongoing support, and ongoing consolation. I'm talking about real concise and precise spiritual maturity that allows for a healing that is ongoing, that is and what people consider as a personal level of investment in their lives. So when the toxic piece comes in, it's to, I think Jasmine kind of alluded to it earlier, talking about, with some Black women thinking, you know what, if I need to hold on to this man, because if I don't, there's that out there, so I'm gonna just keep this here. Our expectations have been laden with doubt. Our expectations have been torn asunder. The possibility of, I could live in the ways that the Most High wanted me to live, that dream has been torn. And now this toxicity has continued to enter my brain through the media, through the television, through the imagery, through the magazines, through the social media, through your girlfriend, through your boyfriend, the colleague on the job, running their mouth. So we got all of this stuff happening. You hearing people, you see people fight on the train, on the bus, on the block. And so all that enters your mind. And that's why it's so valuable, family, to see images and to have examples. I really thank the Most High for our brother on the panel, our dear beloved brother, the brother Lamont, who's able to share his pictures of him and his lady after decades of love. I'm talking about decades of love.
Go ahead.
Not to say that it's all perfect. We know it's not all perfect. We know it's not always rainbows and sunshine and ice cream and candy. You know what I'm talking about? But we also understand the work that it takes and required for that healing, so that we know that when we are all individually at our low points, we can exist. I'm gonna close with this, Brother Brill.
Yes, sir.
Read a definition to you.
Thank you.
Opposite. Having a position on the other or further side of something. Facing something, especially something of the different type. Number 2, diametrically different or a contrary kind. I've never been comfortable, family, with the terminology opposite sex. She's not my opposite. See, I'm going deeper than just the biology equation of the way the Eurocentric mind operates. See, the Black woman is my supplement, right? We're working together to enhance each other. But see, this is not a situation where it's I'm Black and she's white, I'm night and she's day. No, we both coming up. We just both stars in the sky. She's that star, I'm that star. We both in the sky together.
Go ahead.
See what I'm saying? We're not to your point about, I'm getting to your point about words and language being powerful.
Yes, sir.
The concept of opposite sex is rooted in this binary existence, which is a very Eurocentric paradigm of it's either this or that, not knowing that African spirituality exists in the gray. And so she can't be my opposite. You follow me on that? Spiritually, we are so in sync due to our melanin, our history, our experience, our nature, our genotype, our phenotype, our investment as the inception of the planet Earth and the universe and the cosmos. It is an impossibility for the Black woman in America and around the world to be my opposite.
Thank you so much, beloved. Really quickly, and I'm coming straight to Brother Dante, who's going to take us further. You said that so beautifully, and what I gather from it is what you're really saying, we're two independent expressions of the same supreme being. We're taught in Nation of Islam the male is not like the female, which is true, right? When you talk about the opposite sex being diametrically opposed, right, on the opposite side, just because we are different does not necessarily mean we are opposite, right? Like you mentioned the stars and everything. We have specific natures within the grand nature, right? Which is why we have our sparring matches at times intellectually, hopefully not physically, you know what I'm saying, even emotionally as men to women, because we're not the same. But our ability to understand and then cherish and uplift those distinctions among us will allow us to move forward, which is why when people say, I don't see color, see, that's a travesty. Because to not see colors, to not see some aspect of the uniqueness that makes me you and I. It's not that you should seek to not see it, is you should seek to understand the definition, the meaning, the very essence of that which makes you different, and thereby appreciate that.
Yes.
And then desire to get to know me and yourself better.
And that's the point. See, we dig the science of the sun, moon, and star. We understand that.
Right.
But the point that you raised is the critical part. See, difference doesn't mean opposite. You see that? Difference is not opposite. And that's why I'm trying to hone in on, family. Like, we can be different. We are different. Let's be very clear. But is she my opposite? Am I the opposite of you, sister? I'm not your opposite now. I'm not your opposite. See, now I can show you a man who's the opposite.
Right. Go ahead.
Huh? I can show you a man who's the opposite. All right. But it's not this black man here sitting in front of you. And so I think that's where we can, that's where the distinction causes. Yes, we're different. And actually the difference is very important to your point about the sun and the moon and the differences and the ways in which the earth responds to it. But I think that the most important thing for me to the family's question is, listen, all I want to say is, family, whatever we can do to keep our house united and not divided, let's do it. And if y'all want to reach out and if y'all have questions, contact our sister Zuno, answer the bell, so that she can provide some counseling for the family. I mean, we are here not only to build, as the brother Jabril said, but we are actually have specific resources. The sister Zuna is changing lives every day here in the city of Philadelphia. You know what I mean? Please contact our dear sister because she's doing some work that is so needed right now in this moment of crisis and tribulation. So please contact the family. Let's get involved. Let's keep building.
Yes, sir. Going straight to Brother Dante. Quick shout out to Sister Lorraine Muhammad. Shout out again to Kimba Bomani Ojure. She said, I forget if it's he or she, excuse me. Brother Gabe, you told us that before. I want to make sure I get this right. Kimba, is that a brother or sister? Brother, excuse me. Pardon me on that family. But you said the opposite of me is the devil. That's exactly what we're talking about. Opposite of me, opposite of us is devil. All praise is due to Allah. So thank you so much. Naima Wilson, shout out to you. Thank you for watching us today. I'm going straight to you, Dante.
Yes, sir. I wanted to briefly, when you was mentioning, that the woman is not my opposite, it brought to mind this verse in the Holy Quran. I just wanted to say part of it. It's actually chapter 4, which is entitled "The Woman," and is the first verse. In the name of Allah, the merciful, O people, keep your duty to your Lord who created you from a single being and created its mate of the same kind and spread from these two many men and women. And, I thought that was interesting, going back to the previous question, talking about American culture. And, a lot of us don't realize that American culture or even European culture is toxic to Black men and women. That's a fact that we have to understand, that European culture is naturally toxic to us. It's the mindset is literally opposite to how we view things. Brother Gabe mentioned this earlier. A lot of our Afrocentric beliefs was about holistic, being one, being unified with not just ourselves and others, but being unified with creation. It's all one. It's all one mind. When we talk about the most honorable Elijah Muhammad told us, what Allah means. Allah means all and all, meaning all is of one mind.
Go ahead.
When we look at European culture, it's not like that. You see what I'm saying? European culture is, I'm an individual, the animal is different from me. This is different from me. That's why they were paganistic. That's why they believed in so many different gods, because, they had Poseidon being a lord of the water, and then Ares being a lord of war and all this extra stuff. They didn't see it as all one thought, all one mind, all different expressions of the same thing. But the reason why they thought like that is because they're not original, right? So and when we really understand who he is in his mind, we really start to understand why we have the view that we have. Because like I mentioned earlier, when you are grown in a certain type of environment, in a certain kind of a community, you take on that thought, you take on that color. So if we've been here for 460 some odd years, we're going to take on the color of the man who is ruling. So we're going to think like him. So if we go into his mind and we understand how he thinks and how he sees everything as individual, then we begin to understand why we're thinking like that, because we're under his rule.
Come on, Dante.
So being separate is not our natural thinking. You know, and understanding that this culture that we're ingrained in, this is why we have to get back to our own self, because this culture that we're in is a toxic culture. And toxic, you know, there's a very simple definition for toxic, and that's poisonous. And poison is something that kills you slowly. So when you ingest poison, depending on the amount of poison that you take, it can kill you instantly or it can kill you over time. It just depends on the volume, what type of poison, etc. So we've been here for, you know, this amount of time, for this long. We've been ingesting poison the whole time. Now we're wondering why we're dying. You see what I'm saying? Now we're wondering why, you know, we're dying in the streets. We're violence on each other, you know, there's other people killing us. We're wondering why we're dying in the numbers that we are. That's because we're in this environment that's literally poisonous to our very being. So Brother Lamont earlier mentioned about, you know, separation. That's why it's so key, because you have to separate in order to have life. You know, a lot of people hear the separation and they want to come up with all these crazy ideas. It's like, it's a very simple equation. It's very simple math. It's not difficult. You see what I'm saying? When you understand the man, his mind, and what his mind is doing to us on an everyday basis. I mean, you just look at, you know, what he builds, you know, his engineering, the minister said this a while ago, that, you know, whatever he produced, there's always a level of death that comes with it. So, you know, you have a car, an automobile, you know, you can go fast, right? But look at all of the toxins and the poisons that it's releasing in the air. You know, you have all these big companies that, you know, dump all this waste into the water, killing the fish, killing, you know, the birds with their windmills, etc. So you have these advances in technology, but you also have death that comes with it. So when we just begin to understand, you know, the nature that he brings with him, which is the nature of death, then we can better see why separation is the best and only solution.
Thanks so much, bro. Really appreciate that. Like, I love how y'all broke that down, because I wanted our audience to really understand, you know, that term toxic and why we chose that in the title that we chose. You know, I like to also offer to the panel, when we understand, see, our enemy is one who does things in excess. So when we talk about toxins, right, as a scientist, you understand if I've been poisoned, again, going back to that snake situation, there's something called anti-venom. So you can take a toxin and create something of medication to then heal you. See, we are talking about supreme science here. We're also taught that the pig, even though we as Muslims don't touch it, had a particular purpose, in that it can be used as a medication to heal in some way, shape, or form, in that its body can be used to absorb a lot of excess toxin, and that's really what it was created for. Conversation for another time. So I just want us to understand there's a great duality and understanding to things that we may think are just bad, have a use for us. Going to the fly, for example, right? We hate flies, but one thing we understand about flies, we know where there's dirt, where there's garbage to be disposed of. So they serve a purpose, even in their being great bearers of toxins themselves. So as we segue now to our last question, and we'll continue to field any questions from the audience, going to Brother Gabriel, and we want to talk about our babies, our children. What latent effect does tolerated domestic violence impose on an adolescent mind? One more time. What latent effect does tolerated domestic violence impose on an adolescent mind?
Yeah, and it's a heck of a question that speaks to the challenges that we've had in our families. You know, when we have harmful relationships, intimate partner relationships that are violent, as the question, articulates, the people who are also harmed are the children who have to watch it and experience it. I would go as far as to say that that's also regardless of gender. Boys and girls both receive that information differently. And what tends to happen is that it kind of ties into the last question as far as how we look at toxicity. I've had youth that I've worked with as a youth advocate whose parents were in domestic disputes, domestic violence situations, and it really distorted and warped their outlook on love, on personal hope, on relationships. And depending on who was the abuser in the situation, in most cases it is the dad, but in a lot of other cases it is the woman. But regardless of who's doing the abusing, it will literally impact the ways in which that person, as they grow into adolescence, into teenhood, what they have to expect for themselves as far as self-worth, what they hope to get out of a relationship. But ultimately it affects how they'll look at their own, again, space and self-love. Why is that important? It's important because, self-love allows for external love to enter. Self-love allows for one to be clear on expectations, to be clear on, where do I want to be, right? When I go to bed at night and I sleep and dream of the, as our dear ancestor John Coltrane said, of a love supreme, we all have a vision of that for ourselves. And when we deal sometimes with our parents and guardians and caregivers who were domestically violent, fights, and yeah, it's not even always physical, right? I've had a lot of situations where it was actually mental abuse, all right, which oftentimes can be a lot of times even worse. If you're constantly berated, if you're constantly, put down, if you're constantly not considered, constantly disrespected, constantly made to feel small in a relationship, a child and an adolescent can view that too. It doesn't always have to come with fists and fisticuffs and kicks and the cops being called for those reasons. It's long weeks, months, and sometimes years of, mental abuse. And you will then find yourself enter into a relationship where you think that's normal. I'll just raise Jasmine up again because you raised up, part of this dialogue about the normalization of violence. And I think that what gets normalized is that we don't consider another possibility, that this is probably the only pathway that I have from my existence in this question of love in my life, but even in the love of those around me. So you even, again, perception is reality. You'll believe, well, not only is this going on in my household, it's probably going on in my neighbor's household too. And the one across the street too. It's gotta be, right? Why am I so different?
Right.
Not knowing that, in fact, you actually might be dealing with a uniquely, horrified and just terrible situation that we got to figure out and work with and work you through and hopefully support you through the trauma that you've experienced. And so that's how I think I'll close with that. The trauma that comes from that, I think, I always say trauma impacts our ability to live, love, and learn. And so I think in this conversation, the love piece, the trauma affects the love, being able to receive it properly, but also, as much importantly, being able to give it appropriately. That's where it's been impacted.
Thank you so much, Brother Gabe. Before I go to Dante, I just want to lift something you said, and I'm probably paraphrasing, but you said the self-love allows for external love to enter. That is so powerful because, again, going back to self-identity, if my receptacle, if my container is full of trash, full of or if it has holes in it, how will I then be able to hold that which someone gives to me? I can't. Simple mathematics, right? So when we talk about this, a culture, if you're as an adolescent growing up in a home, you may experience, you know, this level of violence. I want to kind of give an addendum to the question for Dante, being as we're both a bit younger and we've experienced this. How important then does the external relationships of aunties, uncles, mentors, big brothers become in these types of situations?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. I don't know where to start. Well, if you ask any gardener if they talk to their plants, most likely they'll tell you, yeah. And you know, if you ask that person who's gardening, well, what type of words do you give to your plants? You know, they're always kind words. There's words that stimulate the growth of said thing, because plants are living beings just like us. They just have a different form. And when you give something that is growing, that has life, when you give them positive words, positive affirmations, it lets them grow a lot more. Now, human beings are a little bit different, because sometimes in order for us to grow, we need to have that slight chastisement of the word, and then sometimes followed up with something, you know, something better. We see this in the examples of the Gospels, where Jesus was sometimes chastise his disciples a little bit about certain things that they would do, and give them a higher understanding of why they should change their way, or why they should do something differently, in terms of helping them grow into what they eventually became as apostles. So, you know, when we talk about, you talked about things being done in excess a little bit, Jabril, and this culture that we have been displaced into is a culture of excessiveness, right? A lot of people, we excessively party, we excessively drink, we excessively do this, we excessively do that, to the point to where, you know, we kill ourselves through excessiveness. There's no limits. The Quran constantly says, you know, and these are the limits, don't exceed the limits.
Come on.
We constantly do that. So when it comes to our, you know, households, I remember watching the video on Facebook where I guess the little brother, he must have stole something from the brother's shop, and the brother was just like, you know, he was beating him with the belt or whatever. And a lot of people were commenting like, oh, well, do you think that this is okay, or do you think that it's not? And people had like their different views or whatever. And the way I viewed it was that there's absolutely nothing wrong with discipline. Discipline is absolutely okay. I think you're supposed to discipline your children. But I think the problem comes, as it always is when you do it in excess. Like, what does excessive discipline looks like? What does excessive what does excessive like chastisement verbally look like? When does it go from, you know, I'm just trying to have this person or this child develop, to verbal abuse? Like, what's that line like, and how do you determine that line? So, you know, when you have these things in access, especially growing up or in being, you know, preteen, teenager, etc., your mind is still developing. I think we talked about this in the Valence of Violence. I'm not sure. I'll go back and I'll watch it to kind of make sure. But we talked about the impressions on the mind, and, you know, how when your brain is developing, you know, negative experiences literally implant themselves inside of your brain as your brain is growing, because your brain is an elastic organ. It contracts, it does all these different things. So when you have different experiences, depending on how traumatic they are, they literally impress themselves upon you. And we can even talk about this back, you know, in slavery, our traumatic experiences and our excessive abuse down there has passed itself on inside of our genes. So even now, today, inside of our family units, we have a lot of parents or a lot of guardians using such excessive discipline as our slave masters would use excessive discipline to instill fear in us, you know, to get us to do what they wanted us to do. So that's definitely a factor. And then I think a part of your question was, how does it relate to our kind of relationships with like mentors, etc. For me, I would just kind of speak from personal experience. So for me, like, I've had many mentors like in my life so far, as well as, you know, peers and stuff like that. And even I have to, you know, when we're dealing with different people and relationships, we have to understand that everyone is different, right? And I think when it comes to being a mentor, mentee, or having these different type of relationships, it's really important for you to get to know the person, because you may talk to somebody very softly, but you may say a word that they just don't like, and it ticks them off. And then it's like, well, I didn't know that word messed with your mind or whatever. But we have to understand people's experiences. You see what I'm saying? We don't know how. Another session, we don't know how people grew up. You see what I'm saying? We don't know the type of commands that their mothers or fathers or grandparents or whoever gave them. So we don't know what words trigger them. You see what I'm saying? We don't know what things may tick them off. So when it comes to our relationships outside of our core family unit or outside of our family members, we have to be very, very mindful of how we're talking to people. We have to be very, very mindful of how we're treating others. I personally experienced this when I went to school down south. Now everyone knows that in Philly, Philly is Philly. Philly is a special place, and we relate to each other very weirdly here. Like, it's low-key a toxic relation, but it's I don't want to say it's okay, but we people from Philadelphia really understand it, I guess, in a way, to where we're not, it's not offensive to us. So going down south, a lot of a lot of people down south is a little softer. So I had to learn how to tone it down when I went down there, because a lot of people will get offended, and I'm like, I'm not saying this to offend you. I'm just kind of joking around. They're like, yeah, but you can't joke like that. You see what I'm saying? Da-da-da-da-da. And people really take offense to it. It's just how I was talking or how I would joke around or whatever. But that that small experience really taught me that even people in different geographies, you see what I'm saying, relate to each other differently. So when you're displaced and when you go to another area, you have to be cognizant and mindful how people are treating one another. I remember sometimes I would catch the bus to school, and getting on the public transportation, people would get on like, hey, good morning, how you doing? And it was just this big conversation. I'm like, y'all don't know each other, how are y'all like conversing? I know each other from day one. But it was just that was just a culture thing for me that I didn't really experience, because you get on SEPTA here in Philly, you're not talking to nobody. You see what I'm saying? You sit by yourself or or whatever. So it sometimes it goes a little bit beyond our home life. It can stem into community. It can extend into how you treat your friends at school, etc. And even your geography. So I think all of that really just kind of plays a part. But when we're really just talking about toxicity and excessiveness in terms of discipline, where it goes into abuse, I think that's something that really needs to be talked about, because we only get excessive because of the emotional part of it, right? So if I'm chastising a child because I'm angry, you see what I'm saying, that chastisement may go from chastisement for you to know that you're wrong into abuse, because now I'm putting my emotion into it. You see what I'm saying? Now I'm taking the anger that I'm feeling, and I'm maybe physically doing it, or I may be verbally doing it because I'm angry. There's a saying that words said in anger, you really pretty much can't take back. And that hurts. So when we're in relationships, as adults, we're taught to be mindful of your emotions, or if you're angry, don't say anything, step back, calm down, and then go back and approach the situation, so that you won't say anything that will harm the person verbally. I think we should also employ that inside of our homes. If you're angry, you probably shouldn't talk to your child while you're angry. You see what I'm saying? Because that chastisement can go from just a chastisement to verbal abuse, and you don't know how that may affect the child as they get older. So that's just kind of my thoughts on the situation.
Thank you so much, Dante. I actually, as we approach the end of our session, family's last 10 minutes, I wanted to make sure that all of the panelists actually got a chance to tap in on this. So I want to go Sister Jasmine, Brother Lamont, and then end with Queen Zuna. So if y'all have any points, please, on this effect on adolescents for tolerated domestic violence, and anything on the subsequent point as well, please elaborate as we close our session.
Yes, sir. Could you repeat that point? Not the point, but you kind of changed the question a bit, and you had added in aunties, or what was that part?
So the addendum to that question was, you know, being that some of our young people exist or live in environments where they're experiencing or they're tolerating long-term, you know, domestic violence or abuse, or just being present in earshot of it occurring, how important then do those outside home or external relationships, those aunties, those uncles, blood relation or not, you know, those mentors become to that young person?
So I think that's very important, just for the simple reason, of course, of, you know, having someone else to be able to reach out to talk to that you trust, right? Because it's about trust sometimes, and sometimes as an adolescent or even a child, when you go outside of your home and try to talk about the violence that you witness, you might feel as if you're doing something wrong. You know what I mean? And so, in having someone there that you can trust, that's close to you, whether it be a family member or a close family friend, I think that's very important. It's unfortunate sometimes because, as Brother Gabe was saying, a lot of the time, you know, domestic violence is not just physical, it's mental. And a lot of the times abusers, what they do is they try to isolate their victims. And so in isolation, meaning that, you know, well, stay away from your mother, stay away from your cousins and your family. They try to keep them away from their own family sometimes, to kind of keep abusing them. You know what I mean? And that in turn affects the children, you know? And so it's very important, children and adolescents that have outlets and have access to cousins, or friends or aunties or uncles, that foundation, I think, is very important.
Thank you so much. Going straight to Brother Lamont.
Yes, I was just listening and you know, taking in a whole lot of things. One of the things that I wanted to say was that, you know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has taught us that verbal abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. So when you're in a home and you constantly hear the man or maintainer in the home calling the mother out of her name, you know, trying to intimidate the mother in a sense to make her like afraid of you as a man, that she can't, you know, and sometimes we as men can be so egotistical.
Come on.
That, you know, women do this sometimes, but sometimes we as men do it. You know, we cut people off, we don't want to hear. And sometimes it's painful for a man to hear where he's falling short. And that's why I initially stated that manhood training is so important, because just like a woman, you know, and our sisters need a class to learn how to control their tongue, because most women can tear down men with their tongues. And a lot of women specialize in doing that. And if we're fragile as men, and some sisters, most women study men, and they know our weaknesses, and they know the things to say to trigger us to get a certain kind of response out of us. So my teacher and our teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, said, if you have to beat a woman, you don't need a woman.
Come on.
Because that means that you lack wisdom. And a lot of women don't like this word, but the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the respect, the protection, and the control of the Black woman. Now, some say, ain't nobody controlling me. Well, a man can't protect what he can't control. If you don't want to come up under the control of God, either you coming up under the control of God or you up under the control of Satan. So here comes that rugged individualism where you want a man to maintain and protect you. But if I'm a man and I know certain things, then if you're a woman, you shouldn't want to be out all times of the night. And if you do have to leave the home, you should want your maintainer and protector with you.
Come on.
Satan feeds the natural phenomenon of this thing where I'm independent. I do what I want to do. And we glamorize this individualism, but then when you go out into society and something happens to you, then you say, well, where was the brothers at? No, where was your man at? Where was your uncle at? Somebody that could have protected you, but you want to be this self-guided. See, we got to come up under the guidance of God. And I say this, that our children watch us in the home.
That's right.
We got to be quite honest, being up under a slave master for 460 years is not an excuse, it's the reality. There's no book for us as Aboriginal people on parenting. A lot of us made a lot of mistakes with our children, but the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave us something called the 8 steps of atonement. And I think something that we need to learn is that we need to learn to atone to our children for whatever verbal abuse or things that we did to them. We need to learn how to atone to our wives and our significant others that if we said something that was harmful or destructive. Do you know how many men or do you know how many women go to bed at night crying because somebody verbally assaulted them or made them feel like they was less than human? Brother Gabe said that being able to express yourself, there's nothing, you know, a lot of times arguing, we're going to have disagreements, man. We got to get out of this myopic understanding of relationships that we're not going to have disagreements. We're going to have disagreements because we come from different upbringings. But the disagreement should never allow us, one, as a man, first of all, as a man, if you're losing an argument, first of all, we shouldn't be arguing, but if we get into an argument, our spiritual base should want us to come to some point of agreement that we can agree to disagree. But me as a man should never think about striking my wife. Come on. Because we as men know that real men don't hit women. Cowards hit women. Right. I'm going to say it again. Real men don't hit women. Cowards hit women. And when you have to hit a woman to make her submit, then that means you lack wisdom. So again, she is the serious creature of God, and you and I have to know how to handle her, and she has to know how to handle us. I say this in closing. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, you and I must learn how to be kind to one another. Me as a man, I'm a people person. I'm an affectionate person. I hug. I don't mean I'm hugging you because I want you. So when I wake up in the morning, the first person I hug is my wife. Assalamu alaikum, Queen. How you doing? How's your day? Just to start off the day. You know what I mean? So she feels that energy that I'm here with you. We a team. This rugged thing where you do your own thing. No, my success is your success. And if we don't look at it like that, we will be warring at each other, because as a maintainer, I can't do the things to maintain unless she trusts me. So, brother, we have to learn how to atone when we've been wrong. And me being on this journey with my queen for 18 years, we got to learn to listen more. We got to learn to have empathy. And we definitely got to let people express themselves. And if you express yourself and you see something different than me, that don't mean we got to keep going back and forth. You just don't see what I see, and it's okay if we don't see things the same way. We're going to see things based on our emotional makeup, based on our childhood, and based on our experiences is going to affect how we see what we're looking at.
Thank you so much, Brother Lamont. Quick point, and then we're going to end it strong with Sister Zuna. Going back to language, you know, you brought up if you as a man are losing in the argument. I think we have to rethink the fact that somebody has to win an argument or lose an argument.
That's right.
Why can't we just have dialogue, and then we've approached the point at which there's an impasse? But see, I was taught I don't go to bed angry with my wife. You know what I'm saying? So
teach.
I do my best to let her know, baby, I was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or I talk about it the next day, but I'm not going to go to sleep with my life partner so upset that I'm fuming and can't get over it. Right. So I don't move to beat her in intellectual gymnastics when we having a conversation. That's beneath me as a man. That's beneath me as a Muslim. You know, so that's just my last point. Sister Zuna, take us home. Thank you, audience, so much. Sister Zuna, you have the floor.
I really just have one quick point to add actually to kind of what Sister Jasmine said. She had talked about trust, right? And to the original question about tolerating violence in the home and being impressionable on a young mind. I don't think that we think about how much we are teaching our children trust or the lack of trust in us in themselves and the people around them, right? When we have things like this breaking our homes down and the children are present, then who do they trust? How do they learn properly to trust someone when they can't go to the people who created them? When they don't feel like it's even okay because of what's going on with the people who created them to go to an auntie or uncle, right? In order to express themselves. I think that we really have to sit and think deeply about what it is that we are teaching our children, or the lack thereof in that area. That's all I really wanted to say.
All praise to Allah. Well, family, thank you so much, our esteemed audience, for engaging us on this topic. Thank you for your comments, your questions, your building amongst yourselves in the comments. We really appreciate it. This has been a house divided, toxic love, domestic violence, and healing the Black heart. Thank you, Brother Dante, Sister Zuna, Brother Lamont, Brother Gabe, Sister Jasmine. And also, don't think, Brother Samir, we ain't hear you bear witness real quick, coming off the back office. So I had to make sure I mentioned that. Thank you so much, family. We have enjoyed this 5-part series. We look to continue at some point in the future. And we wouldn't be here if it was not for you all. I'm thoroughly humbled to have been able to host these several sessions. I've learned a lot. You know, I've been faced with a mirror and a lot of times of things I need to work on, things I do well, not so well. But I have fallen in deep love with these panelists, and deeper love with my people, and in deepest love with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, reflected in every single session that we've had. So with that, I want to, hold on. I'm sorry. We have a quick question. I want to make sure I address that. How do we, from Brother Chris, how do we take this platform and expand it into many more circles when aired? And do we have DVDs to hand out or even sell to people that need to hear? So like I was just saying, and that's another going back to aunties and uncles, we will be expanding this platform, trying to get it across other ones aired on different platforms. No DVDs at this time, but we're going to make sure that we continue the conversation. And as we know that these are timely topics. So without further ado, I want to reintroduce and bring back on to close us out, Brother Leroy, the co-chair of the 10,000 Fearless Philadelphia. Thank you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, brother, and thank you. Thank you, Sister Jasmine. Thank you, Sister Zuna. Thank you, our illustrious host, Brother Jabril. Thank you, Brother Lamont. Thank you, Brother Dante. Thank you, Brother Gabe. Great night tonight. I was really affected tonight, and I think there's a certain energy that's coming out of this city of Philadelphia. Brother Gabe hit on it. I really felt the passion in his speech, and that is that I remember when 9/11 took place. The whole nation watched this thing as it unfolded and as it went on into weeks. But I had to think tonight that the people of New York were affected in a different type of way than any other people in the world, because they were right there. We're at ground zero right now with a lot of issues in Philadelphia. There's a certain energy that I felt coming out of you, the passion as a result of this environment that we're in. The atmosphere is so heavy right now. And I heard it coming out of each and every one of you tonight. And this energy, which turns into synergy, which can move us in the directions that are necessary to make the will of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad present in this country and throughout the world, can come right here from Philadelphia. There are things that are happening right now in Philadelphia in its 12 letters that are touching every aspect or fabric of life right now. And you all reflected in it in a way or another. Sister Jasmine, Sister Zuna, coming from a female perspective. I had an opportunity to speak to the son of brother to the mother of brother Wallace the other night. Just for a moment. And the energy that was coming out of her, that type of energy is emanating based in Philadelphia, but spreading out. So I want to read something to us all right quick, if I may. This is out of the book of Revelations. Revelations 3 and 7, where it says, and to the angel, messenger of the assembly of the church in Philadelphia. Now, you don't have to physically be here. This has nothing to do with the location that we're in. It's the spirit of the Philadelphian mind. These are the words of the Holy One, the true one, who has the key of David, who opens and no one shall shut, who shuts and no one shall open. I know your record of works and what you are doing, panelists. See, I have set before you a door wide open, which no one is able to shut, brother and sister panelists. I know that you have little power, and yet you have kept my word and guarded my message and have not renounced or denied my name. Take note. I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet and learn and acknowledge that I have loved you because you have guarded and kept my word of patient endurance and have held fast the lesson of my patience with expectant endurance that I have given you. I also will keep you safe, brother and sister panelists and participants in our audience tonight, from the hour of trial and testing, which is coming upon the whole world to try those who dwell upon the earth. I am coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may rob you and deprive you, brother and sister panelists and participant, of your crown. He who overcomes is victorious. I will make him a pillar in the sanctuary of my God, and he shall never be put out of it or go out of it. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which descends from the God out of heaven, in my own new name. He who can hear, let him listen and heed what the Spirit says to the assemblies of the church. I want to thank you all of the participants. I want to repeat something that I have said often. This is not Leroy's call. It's not Brother Captain Anthony's call. It's not Brother Sabir's call. It's not any of the panelists' call to bring you out to the 10,000 feelers. This is the call of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He asked us to participate in this. He asked us to do it. So whether you do it or you not, that's your decision. But let us be found in this hour and in this time, being active. I don't care if you're Muslim, Jew, Christian, atheist, agnostic. I don't care. We don't care. But what we do care about is the directive of helping our people with the message that we have been infused with. So once again, I thank you all, particularly our panelists, over this 5 weeks. We've had some very touchy subjects. I would hope that anyone that is viewing tonight would go back to take a look again at what has already been presented. And this won't be the end of what you hear coming from us. Trust me, it won't be the end of what it is that we're doing. So I want to bring forth, if Brother Sabir, or I like to call him the man that's in the van in the back, working things and making things happen from behind the curtain as well. Brother Sabir, are you there? Can you just show folks your face for one moment?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, brother. This would not be possible, trust me, if it was not for the diligence that he does behind the scenes.
Thanks.
If Brother Anthony is there, Brother Captain Anthony, the regional captain of the DVR, if he is there, This would not be possible if it was not for his efforts. Brother Anthony, are you there? All right, well, I'm not seeing him from this side. Did he show up?
I don't think I'm here, Brother Leroy.
Okay. Well, let it be known that he plays an instrumental part in this as well.
Absolutely.
So once again, from the family staff of the 10,000 Fearless, and all of you that are part of our listening audience, stay tuned. Let's stay abreast of what's going on before us being aware of the time and what must be done. And I go leaving you tonight as I came before you with the holy greetings, the greetings that is really a prayer.
That's right.
It's really a prayer that the peace that only can come from God, Allah, is granted to you and your loved ones and your family. And let's go forward and make this thing a reality as we move through and on to higher ground. Once again, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.